Hello again. We are the Advancing Northeast. I am Ashinila Tatamai from the outreach team of Advancing Northeast. We are here again with another session on Career Talks. Our today's guest speaker is a very renowned writer from Nagaland and also my personal favorite. She is the first Nagaland poet to have her poetry published in English and also the first Naga novel in English to be published in 2003 with the title A Naga Village Remembered. Ma'am, before I introduce you to our viewers, I'd like to say a few notes about Advancing Northeast. So Advancing Northeast is a digital initiative which is ideated by Northeastern Council, Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region, Government of India. This is to act as a state resource center for and also act as a one-stop solution portal for students, youths, especially focusing on the students and youths of Northeast so that they have career opportunities and also they have career choices and we can guide them a little more. So ma'am, can you introduce about yourself to our viewers?
Hi, good morning. It's morning for me here, and good evening to you because it's evening there. My name is Esterine Kire. I write fiction, but I write historical fiction and I write nonfiction and some poetry and regular articles in a newspaper back home. I have done my master's in English at the Northeastern Hill University, and I also have a doctorate in translation studies from the University of Pune, and I have done a degree in journalism, which I can talk about later.
Ma'am, so my question was, what led you to choosing writing as a career, or what inspired you to take up the career?
Okay. First, I want to say that I don't consider writing as a career, because when we say career, I think that's the wrong terminology to use. Writing is a choice and writing is a lifestyle because it's so absorbing. So I don't want to lead people astray by letting them think that it can be like a 9-to-5 job, because it is not. Sometimes I work 14 hours a day or 16 hours a day. So that kind of dedication comes only if you have the heart for it. And I wanted to clarify that in the beginning. From a very young age, I loved reading, and I think many readers eventually take up some sort of writing. And I love reading because it took me into a different world and engaged my imagination. And it's so important to give children books and not an iPhone, because when you give them books at an early age, you're doing something very healthy for them. I'd like to say that the writing that I chose to do, I was very interested in the idea of historical fiction because we didn't really have historical fiction back in the day, and I also saw that a lot of our history was not presented in a way that was attractive for younger readers. So you're familiar with my first book. It's A Naga Village Remembered, which is now reissued as Sky is My Father. So I found that story fascinating, and at that particular time, I had been translating a lot of village documents. So I had the information and the knowledge at hand. Therefore, I just thought, okay, why not give this a try? And started writing, and it came easily because it's based out of my culture. Then another phase of our history is the Second World War. And fortunately, my aunt was alive and she gave me her memories, she gave me her diary to work on. So again, this was unwritten history being recorded into a historical novel. And that's always easy, easy for readers to access because it's not a textbook. And even today, many young people are turned off by textbooks. They don't want to read textbooks, but they like the idea of a novel. So it works in that way. Then that was followed by Bitter Wormwood, which is an account of the Naga national movement. And much later on, I wrote A Respectable Woman because it was important to document the post-war years. We don't have novels on the post-war years. What happened after 1944, 1945? Because all of Kohima was bombed and life came to a standstill, schools were suspended, and just everything came to a complete standstill. So how did they rebuild their lives after that? I was interested in that. I had oral accounts, and my mother was alive to give me her memories, so it grew into another book, and that's how I've been dealing with the history of our people.
So, ma'am, it was nice knowing about your books. Ma'am, can you tell us, is writing confined, or who can be a writer? Is it confined to a particular stream of students or particular degree?
No, that's the thing. When I first said writing is not a career, um, I'll qualify it by saying that creative writing is an art and it can't be taught, but there are different kinds of writing, and uh, now we're talking about commercial writing. So non-creative writing can be taught, but people have to bring something to the table. Students
Yes,
have to have very good mastery of the language that they're going to work in, whether it's English or Hindi or Assamese or any native language. They have to be fluent in that. I meet so
yes,
many
ma'am.
students who say that they don't know their native language, which is such a sad thing. English is not your native language, and if you don't know your
Yes,
native language, you're cut off from your roots. So, just as I always think of carpentry as an example, just as you and I probably cannot be carpenters because we won't have the basic skills of being able to cut a plank straight. In the same way, the thing that you have to bring to the table is linguistic skills. You have to be good at language, because if you have mastery over language, then that can be improved on. And who can be a writer or um, writing as a career? That was your question. And I want us to focus rather on what is called business writing or commercial writing, because that can give you a career with writing at the core and a certain kind of specialized writing. So it would be writing blogs or writing articles that give information about a product or writing about a company and promoting a company. So that's what I meant by commercial writing. If you go online, you'll get more information about that. And it's possible to have a career in that.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, can you share a little bit more insight about your personal journey?
Mm. Um, I suppose you mean how I started out writing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. because I read a lot of books from a young age, I guess that's what drew me to writing. I started writing poetry in my teens, but it was only in my 20s when I was at university that I wrote my first short story and sent it off to some competition, and then it won a prize at Asia Week. Asia Week was a big magazine those days. I don't know if they publish it anymore. So that was very encouraging to be recognized, or really gave me uh, food for thought. So I continued in that line as a hobby because I wanted to teach. That was the thing on my heart. So I started off with writing short stories, then got the courage up to publish my poetry. But today I would advise leave poetry for the end of your writing career, because um, a lot of mediocre poems are published today, and 10 years later they will regret it, because we don't understand poetry. Poetry really is condensed thought. So condensed thought happens when you're much older, when you're much more mature in your writing or in your way of thinking. Okay, to come back to my own writing. So I started with the short stories, then continued with articles in newspapers. And as I said before, I had material from translating village documents and used that to write my first novel. But also at university, I was very inspired by reading what we used to call writers of the Commonwealth. And writers of the Commonwealth were writers from um, formerly colonized African countries like Nigeria, like Kenya, then Australian writing and writing from the West Indies. So, can you still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, these were much closer to our cultures, much closer to our societies than Western or books from the West, books on English literature, etc. So I was encouraged. I thought if they can write about their communities like this, then I can attempt to write about my culture and my people. And that's how it all started.
Ma'am, that is a very fascinating journey that you took. So, ma'am, based on what you said, I'd like to ask one more question. As a writer, what are the challenges you face in publication?
Um, I don't want to don't want to discourage uh, aspiring writers, but and I think
Yes, ma'am.
my batch of writers from the Northeast, I think we've come a long way, because back in the day it was hard as a person from the Northeast to get published. In the 90s, publishers were not interested, and I'm talking about mainstream, mainland Delhi publishers were not interested to publish people from the Northeast. They just had a very myopic idea of the kind of writing that we would bring. And also, they brought their expectations to bear on us. So, if we didn't write about conflict, if we didn't write political things, they weren't interested. And they wanted only sensational writing from the Northeast. So, this is the hurdle all of us face from the Northeast. Then something very beautiful happened out of that, because the Northeast writers got together, writers from Assam, Guwahati, from Meghalaya, from Tripura, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Sikkim, and I hope I haven't missed out any, not Arunachal Pradesh, etc. And we formed the Northeast Writers Group, and that is still alive today, and started publishing our stories in journals. And then that became attractive to other publishers outside the Northeast. And that's the journey we've all been on. Yeah. And now today, there's a big demand for writing from the Northeast. About 6-7 years ago, I was in Mizoram, and I was telling them Northeast is trending, and the trend will not fall off, but it'll just keep trending, and it is because publishers actually come to the Northeast and they ask us to work with them. So it's a complete turnaround.
So, ma'am, as we all know that Nagaland, we still lack in publication house. So, what due to lack of professional publication in Nagaland, what are the problems that you face or that is faced by writers?
Um, I saw that question that you put up, and I want to ask you to explain exactly what it means when you say we don't have professional publication houses.
I mean, as compared to other states, Nagaland is a little behind in the publication house. So, what is your comment on that, ma'am?
Okay, I choose to differ with that. I've been to several literary festivals in the Northeast, and now many states in the Northeast look up to Nagaland because we actually have many publishing houses within the state. So we are not reliant on publishing houses outside. We can easily publish within the state, and we can easily reach our market. I want to give you names like Heritage Publishing House, then Penthrill, then the new ones are Dimapur Publishing House, Woods Publishers, and I'm a partner with Barkweaver Publishing House. And I must make mention of the oldest publication house, that is the Ura Academy, that has been functioning since the 50s. And because they publish in the native language in Hindi, many people don't know, many people who do not speak Hindi don't know much about them, but I think they've published more than 200 titles. And
Yes, ma'am.
yes, they've done human service for the region and for the language, because they've inspired all the other publishing houses. And when we talk about professional publishing, I want to let your readers know that at Barkweaver, we are a registered company, and the other publishing houses that I've mentioned are registered companies. All our books have an ISBN number, and for Barkweaver, any book that we publish is catalogued in the National Library of Norway. So that would be your answer to professional publication houses.
Okay.
And yeah, and as for marketing, the thing is with the Naga publishing houses, the market is a Naga market, because we're dealing with Naga, or we're writing about Naga themes and topics of Naga interest. At the same time, there are online markets available. So the market beyond Nagaland, that is also being served through the online portal. So I'm actually very proud of our publication houses.
Yes. So, ma'am, what is the process of book publications, and also how does this publications influence the writer?
It's a long process, because if you are thinking about how the story grows until it's actually born into a manuscript, we call it a manuscript, we don't call it a book until it's published, and the manuscript is sent to sent to a publishing house. But nowadays, what I do is I have an agent, and many writers in India, especially, I'm talking only within the Indian context, have agents. And you send your manuscript to the agent, and the agent auctions it, shows it around to different publishing houses. So it becomes a product, it becomes a commodity at that point, and there's an auction, and it can go to the highest bidder. And I just find it very funny, actually, but that's how they work in the publishing world, because the publishing world is an industry. That is a thing that interferes a lot with the whole ideal of writing. Yeah, so then sometimes publishers will be fighting over it, and they will try to outbid the other. And then finally, there's a publisher who wins out, and the book is published. And then after it's published, it needs to be made visible. So in order to do that, they send it out for reviews, and it could get rave reviews, or it could get not very nice reviews. But in case it gets rave reviews, they also send it out to all the awards, send it up for competitions, or it gets picked up, it gets nominated. And actually, it's very dangerous, because the way many people think is that if a book wins an award, then it's a good book. If it doesn't win, it's not a very good book. So many good books are going unread because of this mindset created by awards. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am, totally yes. So another question, ma'am. What is the scope of writing in our state, Nagaland, and also what is the market demand for writers?
Yeah, I want to come at that from a different angle, and
Yes, ma'am.
instead of scope for writing, we have scope for documentation, of unwritten history, because we have only just come out from an oral culture into a written culture, not many years now, like 30, 40, 50 years, not even 100 years. And there's still so much unwritten history available in our villages. And this is a matter of time, because after the pandemic, something that's happened is that deaths of elders are being accelerated. It's a very terrible thing. So we don't have much time. Therefore, what we should focus on is documentation of the unwritten histories and the unwritten stories, because without that, we don't have scope for writing. Without that, we don't have our raw material. So first we should get our raw material out, and as much as possible, and within a short time, because really time is of the essence in this matter. But when you ask about the market for writing, the market is defined by the sort of thing that we write, the interest group. And I've seen that if somebody writes, for example, a book on the migration narrative of his tribe or his village or his clan, uh, only the tribe or only the clan is going to buy it. So that is the thing. When we talk about the market demand, it depends. It really depends on what the book is about.
So, ma'am, how is your work in Norway?
Oh, what
What
do you
is the
mean
work
by that?
culture?
Oh, it's very different from India, if that's
Yes,
what you
ma'am.
mean, because we as I told you, I write 14 to 16 hours a day, and
Yes, ma'am.
and those who do a 9 to 5 job, they're very punctilious about it. They
Yes, ma'am.
feel they have to answer to themselves. So people write down
Yes,
the
ma'am.
hours they're working, and if they're working from home, they put in the exact hours that they're writing. So it's a great example, and sometimes you see them sacrificing their weekends. Here, there's no first and third Saturday. Every Saturday is a holiday,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
yet there are people who make up by working on the weekends, and really that's something that we should emulate, but
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how that'll happen.
Okay. So, ma'am, coming to the conclusion, I'd like to ask a question. As a writer and with all the experiences throughout these so many years as a writer, ma'am, what would be some offered tips or advice or suggestion for those aspiring writers or who aspire to be writers like you, ma'am?
Whether it's creative writing or non-creative writing, uh, any kind of writing, the tip that I would give is uh, be be prepared to be very hardworking, because there's no way that you'll get anywhere without hard work. There's no such thing as a lazy writer. You know, back in our day, our parents didn't say this to us, but we can say to our children or to our students that if you're lazy, a robot is going to steal your job. So that is the age that you live in, what with the chat GPT and artificial intelligence and robots that can, as soon as they get the information, they're able to come up with text. So the human writer is really challenged by all this. And I have a whole lot of tips. One is read a lot, read excessively, because reading gives you knowledge, and don't start off from a point of half knowledge. Read back and forth on the subject that you want to write about. Then, because reading also improves your language, and
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, improves your grammar. It introduces you to new words, and then you learn how to use those words, the context of those words. There's so much that reading does. Then please remember that writing is a great responsibility, because you are borrowing somebody's time. You are taking away an hour or two or six. Sometimes a book takes about 6 hours to read. When I use my Kindle, it tells me this book needs about 8 hours to read, or 6 hours. So you are taking away that amount of time from a person, and you can never repay it. So what you write had better be good. You you
Yes,
you
ma'am.
you cannot give them shoddy work, and um, you really cannot waste your reader's time. Then other tips to complement that is the power of editing and the importance of editing. I can't stress enough the importance of editing, because many books written today are not properly edited. The grammar is not good. Then there are just many mistakes that we can see, which show very evidently that editing has not gone into that process. So editing, revision, proofreading, these are absolutely essential to good writing. And for aspiring writers, please be humble, please be teachable, because you're not going to get anywhere if you're not humble and if you're not teachable. Be prepared to receive correction. Um, Life is your school, and life will correct you, and you will also come across individuals who will give you gentle correction. But if you're not willing to accept that, then you're the loser. And uh, when you're writing, use the right tools. Use a thesaurus, use a dictionary, all of which are now so easy for the writer of today because you just open your screen and you can open the thesaurus, you can open the dictionary, etc. We had to lug around our big books of big dictionaries.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And another thing is be clear and don't try to be clear and also use everyday language. Don't try to impress your readers by using many, many big words. I've seen some writers do that,
Yes,
and it's very annoying because you have to read their book and you have to go through the dictionary because every two sentences they want to give a big word which nobody
yes, ma'am.
uses. So it interrupts the flow of reading and it doesn't do anything. You just get irritated with the writer. So see, because humility enters there as well. Uh, Somebody who uses a lot of big words is just trying to impress the reader and trying to show, look, I know all these words. It doesn't work, you know. Yeah. Yes. So those are the tips I would get, but most of all, be prepared to work hard. You get places when you work hard, and you don't if you're not working hard. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, those tips and the suggestions that you give that are something which cannot be brought by any money, cannot, it's it's wordless, ma'am. Thank you so much. And ma'am, I really love this interaction with you because I have been hoping that one day I'll see you and interact with you. And definitely this time I did it. And I'm so happy that you agreed to come to our show. Thank you so much, ma'am, in spite of your busy schedule. Thank you for making time